The sinking of the MV Sewol occurred on April 16, 2014 en route from Incheon towards Jeju. The Japanese-built South Korean ferry capsized while carrying 476 people, mostly secondary school students from Danwon High School. The 6,825-ton vessel sent a distress signal from about 2.7 kilometers north of Byeongpungdo at 8:58 Korea Standard Time. Around 300 people died in the disaster. Of the approximate 172 survivors, many were rescued by fishing boats and other commercial vessels, which were first on the scene before the arrival approximately 30 minutes later of the South Korean Coast Guard and ROK Navy ships, backed by helicopters. There are ongoing recovery efforts by the South Korean government, the United States Navy, civilian groups, and individuals. The sinking of the Sewol has resulted in widespread social and political reaction within South Korea, ranging from criticism of the actions of the captain and most of the crew of the ferry, to criticism of the ferry operator and the regulators who oversaw its operations, to criticism of the South Korean government and media for its disaster response and attempts to downplay government culpability. On May 15, 2014, the captain and 3 crew members were charged with murder, while the other 11 members of the crew were indicted for abandoning the ship. An arrest warrant was also issued for Yoo Young-yun, the owner of Chongajin Marine that operated the Sewol, but he could not be located despite a nationwide manhunt. On July 22, 2014, police revealed they had established the body of a man found in a field 415 kilometers south of Seoul was that of Yoo. While foul play was ruled out, police said they had yet to establish the cause of Yoo's death. Background: The Sewol, MV Sewol was built by the Japanese company Hanja Shipbuilding and Engineering Company Limited in 1994. At 146 am in length and 22 am in width, she could carry 921 passengers, or a total of 956 persons, including the crew. She had a legal capacity for 180 vehicles and 154 regular cargo containers. The maximum speed of the ship was 22 knots. The Sewol was originally known as the ferry Namanu between 1994 and 2012, and had been operated in Japan for almost 18 years without any accidents. In 2012, the ship was later bought for a copyright $11.6 billion by Chongajin Marine Company, renamed Sewol, and refurbished. Modifications included adding extra passenger cabins on the 3rd, 4th, and 5th decks, raising the passenger capacity by 117, and increasing the weight of the ship by 239 tons. After regulatory and safety checks by the Korean Register of Shipping, the ship began her operation in South Korea on March 15, 2013. The ship made 3 round trips every week from Incheon to Jeju. 2 months before the sinking, it was reported that Sewol again passed a vessel safety inspection by the South Korean Coast Guard following an intermediate survey to ensure the ship remained in a general condition which satisfied Korean Register of Shipping requirements. Passengers: Chongajin Marine declared in the departure report that 450 passengers and 24 crew members were on board. During the later communication with the vessel traffic service, crew members reported the total number of people on board to be between 450 and 500. Secondary reports fluctuated concerning the number of people on board. Initial news reports put the number of total people on board as 350. Some initial estimates ranged to 500 people. Right after the incident, the Ministry of Security and Public Administration Vice Minister, Lee Gyeon-og, stated that there were 459 people aboard, 30 crew members, 325 high school students from Danwon High School, 15 school teachers and 89 non-student passengers. At the same time, Chongajin Marine changed the number of people on board to 477, then fluctuated throughout the day, settling the number at 475. On April 18, the total number of people on board was changed to 476. This number has been kept consistent. Crew: Sewol was manned with a crew of 33, the captain and 14 crew belonging to the deck or engine department, and 18 belonging to the stewards department or having other functions. Conditions: Ocean temperatures in the area where the ship capsized were around 12 degrees Celsius. At that temperature, the time before the onset of hypothermia is approximately 90 minutes. Capsizing. The ship departed Incheon on 9 p.m. of April 15 after a 2.5-hour fog delay. The frequently traveled 400-kilometer route from Incheon to Jeju usually took 13.5 hours. The vessel did not deviate from previous routes. On the morning of April 16 the ship began to take on water. The capsizing began about 25 kilometers off the southwest coast. While a full scientific accident investigation has yet to be completed, by day 2 of the incident some officials had attributed the cause to a sharp turn 45 degrees to the right, made between 8:48 and 8:49 a.m., that was quickly followed by the initial intake of water. At the time of the accident, conditions were calm and the area did not contain rocks or reefs. Passengers reported feeling a tilt of the ship and hearing a loud bang. At the time of the accident, the captain was in his private cabin and the third mate was at the helm. The captain is reported to have returned to the bridge and attempted to rebalance the ship immediately after the accident. At 8:52, a student called the National Emergency Service number and was connected to the Ulsanam-do fire station and reported that the ship was capsizing. The student was connected to the Mokpo Coast Guard and talked for 6 minutes. The reporting passenger was later found dead. At 8:55 a.m., the ferry established contact with the Jeju Vessel Traffic Service and asked the Jeju VTS to notify the Coast Guard that the ship was rolling and in danger. At 8:56 a.m., the Jeju VTS called the Jeju Coast Guard. At 8:58 a.m., the Mokpo Coast Guard received the emergency call for the sinking of the ferry made by the student and dispatched a patrol vessel. During this time, the captain told passengers to stay in their rooms. The communications officer, using the ship's intercom, repeatedly ordered passengers not to move. The ship then began communicating with the Jindo VTS, which was closer to her location. At 9:06 a.m., the Jindo VTS attempted to establish contact with Sewol, which it did at 9:07 a.m. At this point, the crew confirmed to VTS that the ferry was capsizing. At 9:14 a.m., the crew stated that the ship's angle of heel made evacuation impossible. At 9:18 a.m., the crew reported that the ferry had heeled more than 50 degrees to port. The heeling was later confirmed by the Central Disaster Countermeasure Headquarters. At 9:23 a.m., VTS ordered the crew to inform the passengers to wear personal flotation devices. When the crew replied that the broadcasting equipment was out of order, VTS told them to personally order the passengers to wear life jackets and more clothing. At 9:25 a.m., VTS asked the captain to decide quickly whether to evacuate the ship, stating that VTS did not have enough information to make the decision. When the captain inquired about the rescue, VTS replied that patrol boats were due to arrive in 10 minutes and a helicopter in 1 minute. The captain then replied that there were too many passengers for the helicopter. Around 9:30 a.m., the captain gave orders to evacuate the ship, though the order may not have been relayed to all the passengers. At 9:33 a.m., after confirming that nearby ships had volunteered to help in the rescue operations, VTS told all ships to drop lifeboats for the passengers. At 9:38 a.m., all communications were cut off between VTS and the ferry. About 3 minutes after all communications were cut, about 150 to 160 passengers and crew jumped overboard. The captain of the Sewol, Lee Jun-sok, was rescued by a ROK Coast Guard cutter with other bridges personnel while the vessel had reached a list of near 60 degrees. A video of him being rescued was later released by the ROK Coast Guard. By around 11:18 a.m., the bow of the ship was submerged, with a section of the hull about 2 meters high and 20 to 30 meters long showing above the water. At 9 a.m. on April 18, only 50 centimeters of the bulbous bow was above water. As of 1:03 p.m., the ship was completely submerged. Inside the Sewol, during the sinking, a teenage victim recorded a video clip inside the ship. At first, the teenagers were joking, but soon they became suspicious and confused. Passengers talked to one another, trying to reassure and inform each other of the situation. The cell phone recorded the announcement, "Do not move from your present location and please stay." The clip also recorded one passenger saying, "What's the captain doing?" Text messages, KakaoTalk mobile messages, and photos are believed to have been sent by the passengers and crew as the ship sank. The last KakaoTalk message was sent on 10:17 a.m. Text messages allegedly sent by the passengers of the ship initially circulated in the media, but an investigation by the Cyber Terror Response Center found that passengers did not use their phones between 12 p.m. of April 16 and 10 a.m. of April 17 and that most of the circulating messages were fake. Causes, direct causes. As of April 17, the ROK Coast Guard has concluded that an unreasonably sudden turn to starboard, made between 8:48 and 8:49 a.m., was the cause of the capsizing. According to the Coast Guard, the sudden turn caused the cargo to shift to the left, causing the ship to experience an incline and to eventually become unmanageable for the crew. The existence of the sudden turn has been confirmed by the analysis of the ship's automatic identification system data. The crew of the ferry has agreed that the main cause was the sudden turn. Experts such as Lee Sang-yeon, a professor and head of the Environment Maritime Technology Institute of the Pyeongchang National University, have also agreed. Overloading and the lack of proper securing of the cargo are also being seen as direct causes. The MV Sewol was carrying 3,608 tons of cargo, more than 3 times the limit of 987 tons. The overloading was also previously noted by an off-duty captain and the first mate. Lee Sang-yeon has also proposed overloading as a cause. According to the off-duty captain of the Sewol, the ship owners ignored his warning that the ship should not carry so much cargo because she would not be stable. Adding to the ship's instability was the fact that the Sewol was carrying only 580 tons of ballast water, substantially less than the recommended 2,030 tons, which would make the vessel more prone to list and capsize. South Korean newspaper The Kosunilbo argued that the discharging of ballast water was a cause of the incident. The crew had reportedly pumped out hundreds of tons of ballast water from the bottom of the ship in order to accommodate the additional cargo. Secondary causes have also affected the capsizing of the ferry by decreasing the restoring force. The crew of the ferry stated that the lack of restoring force was a cause of the disaster. The Prosecution Police Coalition Investigations Headquarters is currently investigating secondary causes which could have lessened the ship's restoring force. Renovations adding extra passenger cabins have been proposed as a main secondary cause by Kim Gil-soo, a professor in the Maritime Transport Technological Department at the Korea Maritime University. This possible cause has also been supported by the captain, as well as the aforementioned Lee Sang-yeon. Obsolete theories, explosion. Gong Gil-young, a professor of aviation engineering in the Korea Maritime University, has commented that the sudden turn was simply the first cause and that there were secondary causes to the incident. He advocated an explosion as the most probable secondary cause. Reef Collision. At the beginning of the investigation, the ROK Coast Guard thought that the cause was a collision with a reef, believing this likely because the area was foggy. The captain denied this was the cause of the accident, and a reef collision has been dismissed as a cause by consensus among experts. The theory is also not currently advocated by the Coast Guard. Rescue operations. First day, at 8:58 a.m. on April 16, 2014, units from the ROK Navy were sent to help in the rescue effort. At 9:04 a.m., the Central Disaster Countermeasure Headquarters was created by the government of South Korea. At 9:10 a.m., a rescue operations headquarters was set up in the South Korean Coast Guard. At 9:35 a.m., the Korean Ministry of National Defense started operating counter-disaster headquarters. At 9:40 a.m., the Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries declared the accident to be the highest state of emergency in terms of naval accidents. Consequently, the Central Accident Response Headquarters was established. At the same time, the Ministry of Health and Welfare sent emergency vehicles and the first squad of the Disaster Medical Support Team to Jindo. At 11:28 a.m., the Korea Navy's Ship Salvage Unit was reported to have been deployed for the operations. At 2:42 p.m., 150 Special Forces personnel from the ROK Army Special Warfare Command, including 40 scuba divers, were sent for the operation. At this point, 196 personnel, including 82 in the SSU and 114 in the ROK Naval Special Warfare Flotilla, were involved in the operations. On 3:07, the regional government of the Gyeonggi province was reported to have started operating the Prevention and Countermeasures headquarters. After 5 p.m., units from the SSU began undersea operations. At 5:13, the Gyeonggi-do Office of Education was reported to have started operating the Ansan Danwon High School Accident Countermeasures Report compiling headquarters. At 8 o'clock, operations investigating the ship's hull was ceased. As of 22:03, the following units were involved in rescue operations. Naval forces include sailors from the 3rd Fleet, a Dokdo-class amphibious assault ship, a Chungmugong Yi-Sansin-class destroyer, and an Ulsan-class frigate. The ROK Air Force sent support units such as the Lockheed C-130 Hercules, Sikorsky HH-60 Pave Hawk, and HH-47 variant of the Boeing CH-47 Chinook. The ROK Army sent units including 150 Special Warfare Command soldiers and 11 ambulances. Second day. At 0:30 a.m., hull investigations were started by the ROK Coast Guard with the help of flares. As of 6 a.m., 171 ships, 29 aircraft and 30 divers were involved in the rescue effort. The Korea Coast Guard had assigned 20 divers in teams of 2. The ROK Navy had also assigned 8 divers. At 7:24 a.m., civilian groups of expert divers were reported to be helping out in the rescue operations. Starting around 2 p.m., rescue operations were practically stopped due to bad weather conditions. By 3:32 p.m., the number of divers had increased to 55. Subsequent operations. At 3 a.m. on April 18, cranes began arriving on the accident scene. At 10:05 a.m., divers had entered the capsized ship's hull despite strong tides, darkness and presence of silt in water, but they could not reach the passenger area. At 10:50 a.m., the ROK Coast Guard began pumping in air to support possible air pockets. The divers' entrance was later labeled a failure by the Central Disaster Countermeasure Headquarters. On April 19, 5:40 a.m. 3 bodies were recovered by divers, the first from the passenger cabins on the 4th deck of the ship. On April 21, remotely operated underwater vehicle robots began to be used for operations. On May 6, an Undin Marine Industries veteran diver died while searching for bodies at a depth of 25 meters. He became the first victim amongst scores of mobilized divers at a ferry disaster site. In spite of the death, divers continued their searches. On July 17, shortly before 11 a.m., a firefighting helicopter crashed in a residential area of Gwangju. The helicopter was returning from a 4-day search for missing victims. 5 firefighters, including 2 pilots, 2 rescue workers, and 1 mechanic were killed in the crash. In addition, a student on the ground received a minor injury from flying debris. The helicopter narrowly missed an apartment complex and a school, but did not cause any fatalities on the ground. The cause of the crash was not immediately clear. Survivors and casualties. Initial reports stated that rescuers retrieved 368 people from cold waters as the passengers, mostly school students, had jumped overboard when the vessel started sinking, but the South Korean government later corrected this statement, saying 295 passengers remained missing. 22 of the 29 crew survived, including 15 responsible for the navigation. Early in the rescue efforts, a 27-year-old female crew member was found dead inside the sinking vessel and a male high school student died shortly after arriving at a hospital. In its April 17 morning edition, the Kosan Ilbo reported that 174 people had been rescued, 4 had died, and 284 were missing. According to CNN and its affiliate YTN, 6 people died. News One Korea reported that, as of 8 a.m. on April 17, 179 people had been rescued, 6 had died and 290 were missing. 3 more people were found dead at 11 a.m. and the confirmed death toll rose to 9. At 10 p.m., Yonhap News confirmed that the death toll had risen to 14. By the morning of April 18, the death toll had risen to 28. On April 19, the death toll rose to 36. By April 20, the death toll reached 49. By May 6, a diver searching the sunken ferry had died. Not including the diver, the death toll in the ferry disaster has risen to 264, with 38 people still missing. By May 10, 2014, the death toll has gone up to 275, with dozens more still missing. By May 21, the death toll had risen to 288, leaving 16 missing. As of May 21, the 16 missing were 7 Danwon High School students, 3 Danwon High School teachers, 4 other passengers, and 2 cabin crew members. On 5 and 6 June, 1 dead passenger and 1 dead cabin crew member were found, bringing the casualty count to 290, while the number of missing passengers was down to 14. By June 9, 2014, a 28-year-old female Danwon High School teacher as well as a 17-year-old male Danwon High School student were found, bringing the death toll to 292 and leaving 12 missing. On June 24, the body of a female student was recovered, bringing the death toll to 293 and lowering the missing to 11, including 5 Danwon High School students. The death toll stands at 294 with 10 missing as of the 22nd July 2014, with the recovery of the last cabin crew member. The sinking of the Sewol is the worst ferry disaster in South Korea since December 14, 1970, when the sinking of the ferry Namyeong cost 326 people out of 338 their lives. Foreign response. The American warship Usabon Hanja, LHD-6, and her helicopters assisted in the air-sea rescue operation. However, the rescue helicopter did not get the approval of the South Korean Navy, so it could not participate in the rescue. USNS Safeguard was sent to South Korea to take part in the rescue operation. As well as a message of sympathy and condolences from the Japanese government, the Japan Coast Guard offered support. The South Korean Coast Guard declined the offer, saying that, while the offer was welcome, special assistance was not needed on this occasion. Investigation, captain and crew. On April 19, the captain of the ferry was arrested on suspicion of negligence of duty, violation of maritime law and other infringements. The captain had abandoned the ship with passengers still aboard the ferry, while South Korean law explicitly requires captains to remain on the ship during a disaster. 2 other crew members, a helmsman and the third mate, were also arrested on that day on suspicion of negligence and manslaughter. By April 26, 12 further arrests had been made with the whole crew responsible for navigation in detention. On May 15, Captain Lee Jun-sok, First Mate Kang Won-sik, Second Mate Kim Young-ho, and Chief Engineer Park Ji-ho were indicted on charges of homicide through gross negligence, which carry a potential death penalty. The other 11 crew members face lesser charges of abandoning the ship and ship safety offenses. 3 crew members, Park Ji-young, Jung Yun-sun, and Kim Ki-wing, are credited by survivors with staying aboard the ferry to help passengers escape. All 3 went down with the sinking vessel. Operators. On May 8, the chief executive of Chongajin Marine, Kim Han-sik, was arrested and is facing charges including causing death by negligence. 4 other company officials were also taken into custody. The Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries cancelled Chongajin Marine's license to operate ferries on the Incheon Jeju Island route in May 2014. Owners, Yu Young-yun, former chairman of Chongajin Marine, ignored Incheon District Prosecutor's Office summonses, and went into hiding. On May 22, the Incheon District Court issued an arrest warrant and Korean authorities offered AAA copyright 50 million reward for information leading to the arrest of Yu. On May 25, the reward was raised tenfold to a copyright 500 million. On July 21, 2014, it was reported that a body found in a field in June was believed to be Yu's. Regulation. The disaster raised questions about the regulation of shipping in South Korea. Shipping is regulated by the Korean Shipping Association, which is also an industry trade group, which experts consider a likely conflict of interest. In addition, government regulators outside the association frequently move to jobs as part of the association after their government service. Yoon Jong-woo, a professor at Korea Maritime and Ocean University, notes that while South Korean regulations are strong, they are often poorly enforced. On June 3 the Gwangju District Court issued arrest warrants for a senior vessel safety operator of the Korea Shipping Association's Incheon unit and a vessel inspector of the Korean Register of Shipping's Mokpo unit. Reactions. Political. In addition to reaction against the actions of the captain and much of the crew of the Sewol ferry, there has been a much wider political reaction to the disaster. Criticism has ranged from anger at the lax regulatory environment which may have contributed to the safety violations that could have sunk the Sewol, to anger about the rescue operations, to anger at Park Geun-hye, the president of South Korea, whose approval ratings have fallen from a high of 71% before the disaster to the 40% range weeks afterwards. Political reaction to the Sewol sinking has been intensified by a series of events. A prominent South Korean politician from the ruling Saenuri Party, Chung Mong-jun, was forced to apologize when his son wrote a controversial Facebook post criticizing the public for criticizing the government over the disaster. Many parents of the victims of the tragedy have been expressing deep anger at the government, ranging from reportedly berating Prime Minister Yoon Hong-won to shouting at President Park Geun-hye, to parents staging protests at the presidential palace itself, partly inflamed by a reported remark by a senior news editor at the government-influenced Korean broadcasting system that the number of dead in the ferry tragedy was not many, compared with the number of people killed in traffic accidents each year. Barack Obama, the President of the United States, sent his condolences, stated that the United States would help in the search for survivors, and during a state visit to South Korea, presented a magnolia tree from the White House to the high school. Truong Tan Sang, the President of Vietnam, as well as the Deputy Prime Minister and the Minister of Foreign Affairs, sent their condolences to Yoon Young-se, South Korea's Minister of Foreign Affairs. Singapore's Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong sent their condolences to the President of South Korea. Xi Jinping, the President of China, sent messages on condolences to Park. On April 27, Yoon Hong-won, the Prime Minister of South Korea, accepted responsibility and announced his resignation. On April 29, South Korean President Park Geun-hye indirectly apologized for the government's response to ferry sinking. On April 30, North Korea sent its condolences. On May 18, 2014, BBC reported that President Park Geun-hye announced South Korea plans to break up its Coast Guard after failing to respond well during the MV Sewol ferry disaster. According to Park, investigation and information roles will be transferred to the Korean police, while the rescue and salvage operation and ocean security roles will be transferred to the Department for National Safety, which will be newly established. Civilian. On April 17, a representative of the Kyeonghajan Marine Company apologized for the incident. The chairman and CEO of Korean Register of Shipping, Kom Young-ki, resigned on April 28, following raids on KR offices by South Korean prosecutors. On April 18, the rescued vice principal of Danwon High School Kang Min-kyo, 52, committed suicide by hanging himself. Police stated that a note was found in his wallet. He had organized the field trip that had brought the high school party aboard the ship, and Kang had written in his 2-page note that surviving alone is too painful when 200 lives are unaccounted for. I take full responsibility. The note ended with a request that his body be cremated and the ashes scattered over the site of the accident, that I might be a teacher in heaven to those kids whose bodies have not been found. On April 22, a netizen made a post encouraging others to take part in the KakaoTalk Yellow Ribbon Wearing campaign. The image accompanying the post had a caption stating, "One small movement, big miracles." Since then, the yellow ribbon has gained meaning to symbolize mourning. The ribbons are prominent in the social media, sometimes as profile photos. Celebrities such as Jo Kwon and Hyram Park had joined this movement. See also, sinking of the MV Sewol, list of maritime disasters, list of RORO vessel accidents, List of South Korean ferry disasters, notes. References. External links, media related to sinking of the MV Sewol at Wikimedia Commons.